worth watching. But Baby Reindeer, in my opinion, is definitely one of them. For those of you who don't know, Baby Reindeer is the latest series that seeks to retell the story of a woman who would become obsessed with and stalk a man with some absolutely insane details that need to be seen to be believed. Baby Reindeer is one of Netflix's newest original miniseries detailing the story of specifically Donnie Dunn. And Donnie appears to just be a regular guy, just working at a bar while trying to pursue his dream of becoming a stand-up comedian. Same dude. Just kidding. However, as soon as he meets a woman named Martha at the bar, his life begins to spiral out of control. So when Donnie first saw Martha walk into the bar, he saw a woman that was down on her luck, clearly troubled about something, and ended up giving her a cup of tea, a cuppa, if you will, on the house because she had no money, which would just be the launching point for all the events that would transpire over the next few years. So moral of the story is don't give out free cups of tea, I guess. But after this act of kindness, Martha would repeatedly show up at the bar every time Donnie was working. Every day, in fact. But at this point, she was just a regular at the bar. It wasn't that alarming yet, and they would actually start to build up a friendship with the frequent conversations that they would have. And it's important to note that Donnie really wasn't the kind of guy to make these kind of relationships quickly. He wasn't very charming. Despite him being a stand-up comedian, he actually struggled with that. So when Martha came into the picture, he just took advantage of that, and it felt good to be able to make somebody laugh like he did, because he made her laugh. My God. Because that's what Donnie wanted to do. His whole life, he just wanted to make people laugh, and Martha did that. So she was like fueling something in him, and he was kind of just doing this to all the red flags that happened in the future. So Martha quickly would become obsessed with Donnie, and he likewise would develop a very toxic attachment to Martha. But Martha wanted to be more than friends with Donnie, and Donnie just wanted to remain friends. But Martha would strategically involve herself in his life by just showing up to the bar more than once a day, trying to involve herself in his life more and more as time went on. She'd become a clingy, toxic bitch, okay? And Donnie, at this point, feeling slightly uncomfortable, would let Martha do this because he would kind of just feel bad for her, and also would be fueled by the fact that he made her laugh on a constant basis. But, like I said, Donnie was not interested in Martha. In fact, he was secretly dating a trans woman named Terry. And this is kind of where the lines would become blurred for Martha and Donnie. When Martha went to the bar one time, she was talking about how she bought a new property and that it was fully furnished, but she just needed to hang her curtains. Don't like that, but you know what I mean, right? Yeah. And there was plenty of people around at this time. Donnie worked with a bunch of other guys, so they were all kind of joking around with her. And since Donnie was in a secret relationship with a trans woman at the time because he wasn't ready to come out with that relationship, he played along with Martha and the guys' joke, basically. And he would tell Martha, "I'll hang your curtains." He said it better. And he would say this in a joking manner, though, causing everyone in the bar to laugh. Except for Martha. Martha would take it extremely seriously and literally, and Donnie's joke would just cause her to become extremely more obsessed and creepy. This is when she would actually become a stalker, sending him thousands of really weird emails, waiting for him at the bus stop outside of his house, showing up at his comedy shows unannounced. And despite what Donnie would tell her, just really trying to make her just a friend, she would just hear what she wanted to hear and believe what she wanted to believe. Donnie could literally just be completely transparent, saying, "I just want to be friends with you," and he doesn't have feelings for her, but it would get twisted in her head and she would be like a really sick game to her. There'd be this really creepy scene where they're in like a back alley kind of place together, and he's telling her that he doesn't like her, and she just plays tag with him after that, like really creepily. And he's just like, "Martha, stop," and she's like, "Tag! Tag!" Like, bitch, I would have knocked that bitch in the water. There was a body of water beside them. And then she would go on to, instead of tag him for like the 85th time, she would grab him by the you-know-what, and he would just freeze because he didn't know what the was going on and wouldn't do anything. So at this point, she's believing that they're in a relationship because of the way that Donnie's acting, not necessarily because of the way he's acting, but the lack of being extremely serious or going to the police or doing that and like letting her do certain things. Meanwhile, Donnie just wanted her to be a friend, or just at this point not really want her in his life at all. It's a very weird, blurred line. And he gets called out in the show from his ex-girlfriend and from his ex-girlfriend mom that this is kind of a repeat characteristic of Donnie. And it's just kind of sad. But Martha would continue to stalk and yell obscenities at him in like the street when he was walking outside the bar, like heckling him at shows or sitting outside his house yelling that he has a pig ugly girlfriend, referencing Terry. Because now Martha is going into crazy bitch stalker mode. But all while Donnie was still with his girlfriend Terry at the time, and when Martha found out about Terry, it was ugly. She would go on to brutally attack her, and this would be the first thing that would cause Donnie to finally go to the police to tell them about what Martha's been doing. And then after that incident, the police really didn't take it seriously because he didn't actually have proof. He wouldn't actually tell the police that Martha beat up Terry. He would just say that she's been sending him a lot of messages and emails, and they would kind of brush it off. So then he would just kind of go on about his life, just not thinking much of it. And partly I think this is because he kind of liked the attention, and not in like a bad way, but at this point in the show they do a massive pivot and they go back in time in Donnie's life, and a new character enters into the show. It was a best friend slash brotherly figure to Donnie named Darian, a guy who pointed at being somewhat connected in the entertainment industry, which is the industry that Donnie has been trying to get into for years and years. So naturally, he was really eager to become friends with this guy. And Donnie would connect with Darian because Darian was super open and honest about his life. Darian was open about his sexuality, being gay, whereas Donnie at that point didn't really know what he was. He wasn't dating any trans women at this time or any men. He was only dating a woman at this time, so he had not experimented outside of that. So he didn't even think of it at that point. Darian was also very open about his drug use as well, which will come into play. But Darian promised to help Donnie in his stand-up, and he did, and Donnie started to become successful in that, and Darian and Donnie's relationship grew and grew through this specific episode, mid-season. But one of the ways in which Darian would help Donnie is that he would invite Donnie over to his place, and they would use copious amounts of drugs and write scripts while they were high. But each time Darian would get Donnie high, he would just keep giving him more and more, to the point where Donnie would get completely incapacitated. And Donnie would notice Darian's red flags, and he would notice that he would wake up incapacitated in Darian's apartment, but he wouldn't do anything about it because he kind of craves these toxic relationships and he wanted to move forward in the business, so he just kind of brushed it off, which again is very sad and very common in the industry as well. It's just to work your way up, these people take advantage of the smaller people, and they don't know what's right and what's wrong and what they should be doing and what they shouldn't be doing. And that's kind of, it's very prevalent in this show. And it kind of struck a chord with me in certain scenarios I've been in this industry so far. And in general, with the stalking stuff as well, I've dealt with that during my time online and before my time online. So this whole show just kind of was poking me in a lot of places, all right? And that's partly why I wanted to make a video about it as well, because I think it's important, honestly. And I think it's very validating to a lot of people, especially men that have dealt with these types of situations. But anyway, Darian would, like I said, drug Donnie to the point of incapacitation, and then Donnie would start to become aware that when he was waking up, he was being fondled, and he would find, spit in places that he shouldn't, or semen in places that he shouldn't be, but he would continue to go to Darian's because he was finding success with him, or being promised success with him, but the success was never coming. So eventually at one point, Donnie would finally realize what Darian was doing and realize that it wasn't okay, and he would leave and never speak to Darian again. But this would spiral him into trying to figure out who he was. He would completely break down and realize that he doesn't know if he was gay or if he was straight or if he was something else completely altogether. So he kind of went off on this self-saboteur rampage, sleeping with kind of everybody and anybody that he could find. In my opinion, it was kind of almost like a form of trying to figure yourself out, but also a form of self-harm, because the episode's rough. The episode's a rough watch, but I think it's very important also, because I think a lot of people can relate to that with confusion with sexuality and going through that type of essay and feeling less than a human at that point, which you absolutely shouldn't. But then in the next episode, we jump forward to continue on where we were in episodes previous, where Donnie is continuing to do his comedy shows. He's continued to be stalked by Martha, who is going to his comedy shows and heckling him constantly at them as well. But at one of these comedy shows, Donnie would completely break down and just tell the audience everything, including about what Darian did to him in the past. He would talk about Martha and how he ignored her attachment for his need for constant attention. He would talk about his trans girlfriend Terry and how lovely she is and how he completely ruined it. He would just try to hide her constantly and try to come up with excuses not to go in public with her. He would say the only thing he loved more than her was hating himself, which is so deep and terrible, man. This show's up in kind of the best way. This breakdown of his details that prioritize his attention and fame over making the tough choices that he knew would be better for him. And he would keep kind of backtracking over to the incidents that happened with Darian, just wanting that taste of fame even after repeat abuses and assaults. He would just continue to keep going